Good day, everyone. My name is Jenny Lu Chen-Fei, and I am going to present my research, which is the use of BQ cards to develop pupils' creative written production in English language. Before I start, let me introduce myself. I am currently teaching in Sekolah Kebangsaan Miri, and this is my 5th year in service. So without further ado, let's start. So this research is based on several issues that I found happening rampantly in my classroom during writing lessons. I found that most of my pupils scored quite low in their Bahasa Inggris penulisan paper. And when I actually go through their papers, I found that most of them were unable to score very high scores or very high marks in their section C, which is on the narrative writing section. So although they actually managed to pass the paper, most of them were found to score quite low in that particular section. So it got me thinking, why? Why are they unable to score such a high score? I mean, actually score at least above 20 out of 25 marks in that particular section. So I went and did some observation, some informal discussion, as well as doing some informal interviews and giving having a conversation with my pupils, and I found several of these items that you can see in my PowerPoint slideshow. The first one is that pupils face difficulties to produce creative narrative stories. So basically, pupils' creativity was trapped within the given words that were supposed to aid them in their writing process. So what does it mean by the given words here? So if you look at Bahasa Inggris Penulisan paper, in section C, there are 2 questions that comprise of 2 pictures, as well as several given words or vocabulary that was supposed to help them to aid their imagination and help them to write better. But the problem here is that the pupils' creativity was trapped within the given words. They had this wrong mindset thinking that they need to use all of the words in the story and not choosing the one that can help to enrich the story based on their own creativity. So that's number 1. And number 2, they had this fear to put their imagination into words. So basically, these pupils were taught to write to score in examination. And that is the wrong purpose of writing. So basically, writing is actually to fulfill this enjoyment in their life. What I meant here is that writing should be a process for them to convey the creative message, to convey their views and opinions about a certain picture or a situation in a very creative manner. So when they were taught to score in examination, this has totally cancelled out whatever the fun feeling that they should be enjoying during a writing process. And last but not least, even though these pupils were placed in an advanced class, which is 5A, they were actually pupils with very low to average level of proficiency in English language. So you see that my pupils are actually made up of mixed ability pupils. So some of them who had quite low level of proficiency, they were unable to find certain words or certain vocabulary or trying to connect their ideas and put them into words in their writing in their written products, and this actually affect their performance as well as their attitudes towards writing lessons. So the second major issue here is on pupils' low interest towards writing lessons. So when we say that, okay, today we're going to learn writing, most of them directly turn their mindset that writing lessons are dull and boring. So when they feel dull and boring in a writing lesson, what happens next is that they depend a lot on teacher's guidance, and that creates an over dependency on the teacher's guidance during writing lessons. They will keep on asking for hints, asking for prompts, asking for clues, and then keep on asking for the teacher's help and guidance when writing a very simple paragraph. And last but not least, pupils actually exhibit fear and anxiety towards writing. So this is something I observed in the classroom. When I asked pupils to write a simple paragraph, they immediately gave me a sigh of complaint, and then they had this very drained face, a very pale expression, and then they show a great anxiety towards writing. They complain, saying that, teacher, I don't know how to write, I don't know what to write, and all of this actually contribute to their negative attitude, in which also causes them to have very low interest towards writing lessons. So what's the focus here? This research actually focused on two things, which is first, using a tool to develop pupils' ability to produce quality idea during pre-writing stage. And secondly, aim to determine on the effectiveness of the intended tool to increase pupils' level of interest towards writing process. So this tool here actually refers to the BQ card that I have actually created for this action research. So what is the objective here? The research objectives, there are two main research objectives here. The first one is to determine the effectiveness of the use of BQ cards to develop pupils' creative written production. And second one is to determine the effectiveness of the use of BQ cards to develop pupils' interest in creative written production. And the target group that were selected were my pupils, which are 30 Year 5A pupils in SK Miri. And out of these 30 pupils, it comprises of 12 boys and 18 girls with level of proficiency ranging from low to advanced level. So what's BQ cards? Okay, BQ cards is actually also known as brainstorming question cards. So basically, these cards consist of a number of WH questions that were carefully selected based on the frequency of use during a brainstorming session. So these WH questions were selected according to based on the frequency that I used them during my discussion session during pre-writing stage with my pupils. So I actually went through the questions that I often ask my pupils, and then I composed it and then put it into a form. I made it into a form of card, which I call it as a BQ card. So through the use of a BQ card or BQ cards during discussion, pupils would be able to build a BC map, which is also known as a B creative map. So B creative map actually refers back to the map that pupils or students often made during a brainstorming session, just that I rebranded a little bit. So basically a BC map or B creative map, it consists of the ideas gathered during the brainstorming session which were conducted in groups. So basically the BC map consists of all kinds of ideas that the pupils actually gather during the discussion. They just write it in, and then that is where they will select the ideas that they think is appropriate and eliminate the unwanted ideas which they think might not fit into that particular story. So what are the materials that I need to make? So basically, I used only colored papers, laminating sheets, and most importantly, a set of WH questions that were arranged according to the plot of story, which consists of beginning, climax, and ending. So I arranged the WH questions based on the plot of the story, which starts from the beginning and towards to the climax as well as the ending. By doing so, pupils will be able to use these questions to help them to build up their imagination as well as their ideas based on the plot of the story, in which at the end of the day would enable the pupils to produce a cohesive, a coherent, as well as an organized set of sentences in a paragraph. So you can see here, these are the samples of my BQ cards, which is in the middle, you can see that. And then the other two at the side would be the BC maps that were created by the pupils during the discussion with the use of BQ cards. So implementation, the first thing first that we did was pre-test. So I conducted pre-tests amongst the pupils. I gave them a picture with no words given, and I asked them to write a simple paragraph based on that picture alone. So this was conducted in group, whereby they were seated in groups, and then they had a simple discussion for around 10 to 20 minutes, and then they started to write the composition on their own, okay? And then the implementation of BQ cards in lesson are as follows. First thing, the pupils were divided into groups of threes. So I have to specifically emphasize here is that pupils were divided into groups of three, in which the groups have been carefully selected by myself, whereby in a group, the pupils comprises of an advanced student, an average student, as well as a weak student. So why do I put it like that? This is so that the advanced student will be able to provide a certain form of scaffolding or a support to these weaker pupils that had quite low level of proficiency. By doing so, we can, and I can ensure that the discussion would be able to be handled effectively. Okay, so on the first day, the teacher will demonstrate and explain on how to use the BQ cards based on a given picture as a stimulus for the writing lesson. I will show a sample of a BC map created based on the use of a BQ card, and then simple rules were emphasized and explained before the pre-writing stage. So what are some of the simple rules? First is I had to tell the pupils, I have to emphasize to them that whatever story or whatever ideas they have, it must be something that is not against the norm. Okay, that's the first one. Second rule is that every rule that you have, or every story that you have, every story that you create, it must be based on a moral value. Okay, by doing so, we can ensure that the pupils are able to produce not only a creative story, but also something that is socially acceptable by the readers as well. Okay, and I also allocate 20 minutes for the pre-writing stage. And after pre-writing stage, pupils are required to write their own story based on the BC map created. So after the brainstorming session, pupils are required to write their own story without any guidance from their peer, and they are only guided from the BC map that they have created together in the earlier stage. Okay, guidance were only given during the first session and gradually minimized from time to time. So the guidance here means to say that the teacher's guidance here. Okay, so the teacher will act as a facilitator from time to time, and eventually this activity will become a whole pupil-centered activity instead of a teacher-centered activity. So here we can see several pictures of pupils using the BQ card to discuss, as well as their sample of BC map that they have created and the essays that they have also produced during that discussion itself. So from here, we can see there are differences between the pre-test as well as the post-test. Let's compare the scores during pre-test and post-test. So from here, we can see that during pre-test, most of the pupils scored 11 to 15 marks in section C. Okay, out of 25 marks, most of them scored in the range of 11 to 15 marks. But during the post-test, it was found remarkably that most of the students were able to score 16 to 20 marks in their post-test. So therefore, here we can say that we can actually conclude that the use of BQ card actually affects or actually help pupils to develop their creative written production in terms of their the quality of the ideas, as well as their writing skills. Okay. Observation. So I conducted observation as well to collect my data. First thing first, I found that most of the pupils were very excited during the writing lessons, and that all of them were involved in a group discussion. The advanced one were helping the average one. The average ones were encouraging the weaker ones to give their ideas, helping them to say out their ideas in English language, help them to translate what they had spoken or what they had said in Bahasa Malaysia into English language. And it was found that the weaker ones were very active during the discussion, and they tried their best to contribute their ideas with the aid and encouragement from their peers, which is a very, very good result from the use of BQ cards as well as during the creation of BC maps. So from the findings here, from the comparison of scores between the pre-test and post-test, it was found that the pupils were able to produce quality ideas based on the BQ cards, and they were able to write a very simple paragraph based on the BC map and the given picture. So that's the first one. The second one here is that pupils' attitudes, particularly on their level of interest in the writing lessons, have changed drastically when BQ cards were used in writing lessons. When BQ cards were first being introduced, most of the pupils were unsure of what to do with it. But after several sessions using BQ cards in their pre-writing stage, pupils were found to be very comfortable with the use of BQ cards, and that they were able to give the intended response correctly, and their ideas were really, really good. Were of very high quality, and that the essays that they have created were essays that we would never be able to find if they are continuously restricted by the given words in section C. So at the end of the day, as a conclusion, I can conclude that the use of BQ cards were actually very effective in developing pupils' creative ideas during pre-writing stage, and it was also found to help to develop positive attitude as well as increasing pupils' interest towards writing lessons. So I would like to suggest for future teachers, I mean for teachers who would like to, conduct future research based on this study, I would like to recommend that please implement the use of BQ cards and focus it on the weaker students in the next study. Okay, and I will also recommend that the research to be conducted in a longer time frame, because I believe that by focusing the use of BQ cards among the weaker pupils only and conducting it in a longer time frame, it would affect the result, and it might give much more, it might produce much more quality data that will enable us to actually determine whether or not BQ cards is effective in helping pupils to develop their written production in English language, as well as whether or not is it effective in raising their interest, their level of interest and motivation towards writing lessons among these weak pupils. So that's all from me. Thank you for your attention. And I hope that everyone who are watching this would be able to gain some new knowledge, can gain some benefits from my study as well. Thank you very much. And if there's any question, please do not be shy from asking me. You can just find me in SK Miri, and contact me. Contact my Guru Basar to get a hold of me. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you very much, everyone. See you next time.